Hello, my name is Christine Neillands and I've been a therapist for 20 years. I wanted to talk to you just for a few moments about the kind of work that I do in a nutshell and the kind of people that I work with. Over the years, I seem to have been attracting more and more people, very professional people, very successful people, often people who nobody else would think they were having to suffer with any kind of anxiety or any kind of issue, and yet they are masking feelings of burnout. And it's really common, feelings of burnout in today's Western world society. We are being put under an awful lot of pressure to keep up. Keep up with family pressures, keep up with financial pressures, keep up with pressures at work. So I have encapsulated this in the word burnout, like an acronym. Issues that people have fit neatly into this acronym, and when they go unchecked, or when people are struggling with these particular symptoms, often it just exacerbates the whole feeling of burnout. So the B of burnout is for bad habits. If we have a bad habit that's not being addressed, it could be just leaning a little bit too heavily on alcohol or sugar, a bad habit of being a couch potato, or a bad habit of going out too much. Any bad habits that we're into an automatic pilot with can really lead into feelings of exhaustion, feelings of not coping, because quite literally we're not, we haven't developed the habit of focusing on what we need to focus on in order to move on happily. We're distracting ourselves. Unwanted anxiety, unhelpful anxiety. It's very common to feel anxious, and just to get used to that feeling of anxiety, feelings in our tummy, feelings in the pit of our stomach before we go into a meeting, presentation anxiety. Anxiety for travelling is incredibly common. Often people think they're on their own with the feeling of not wanting to get onto the tube, or not wanting to get onto a bus. That can also be, it can be for different reasons. Anxiety about not being able to get off, or not being able to find a loo, or not being able to make themselves understood in a meeting. So anxiety is incredibly common. Rage. Rage is kind of unacceptable in our society, and so we can often suppress our rage, or sometimes we overly express rage. We're too effusive with our rage, or we're too close to that button that gets pressed where we lose our temper too easily. So rage is very often, if it's expressed too much or if it's repressed, it can lead to burnout. This is a very, very classic symptom, not sleeping well. Not sleeping well is something that we tend to cope with. We get used to certain hours of sleep. We get into patterns with it. If we're not addressing our sleep, if we're not sleeping soundly and sleeping fully, or at the very least, if we're going through a life challenge, if we can't at least rest in the middle of the night when we're waking up, then we can very quickly feel close to burnout. Overwhelm. It's really quite easy to get overwhelmed, especially if you're not dealing with these first four things: a bad habit, or anxiety, or rage, feelings of being on a knife's edge with your rage, or not sleeping well. It's incredibly easy to become overwhelmed with things. U is for underwhelm. Again, we can just become depressed if we aren't dealing with all of these things that I've already mentioned. And depression is something that can be at a grade that nobody quite notices. We just don't feel ourselves. And the last one, T, is for troubling symptoms. So perhaps there's a troubling symptom of bad headaches, or a digestive system, irritable bowel, or something that you've been to the doctor, you've had it checked out, there's no rational, logical reason for this, and yet you've got this troubling symptom. Or perhaps actually you're not going to the doctor and you're just turning a blind eye to it. One of the common things that people do when they're sailing too close to burnout is that they start pretending. They pretend like a veneer over the top of these things. They pretend that everything's absolutely fine because they're not really sure what to do about it. People come here to have a safe space so that they can pause. And pause is another way of looking at this. P, positive psychology. I promise you that underneath every single challenge, there's always an opportunity. A, accept what's happening to you in the meantime so that you can make an adjustment, an appropriate adjustment. You get some understanding around what's going on so that you can unhook from the pattern, break the pattern. S, set your sights towards a solution, because there are solutions, you're just not quite able to see them. And we tend to get what we focus on, and it's incredibly easy when we're in a tight spot or when we're feeling overwhelmed to focus on what's not going well. Set your sights on a positive solution, and I can help you to navigate towards that. And E, evolution. Human beings have survived because we evolve. It's normal to be off course sometimes, and it's normal to get back on track and evolve with a feeling of enthusiasm and excitement. There is a solution to all of this, and finding a safe therapeutic space where you can explore it is a really good thing to do. I want to leave you with a poem, one of my favourite poems by Portia Nelson. There's a hole in the sidewalk. It's just a gist of the poem, it's not verbatim. There's a hole in my sidewalk. I walk down the street. There's a hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. It takes me forever to get out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. I fall down the same hole. I can't believe I'm in this hole. It takes ages to get out of it. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. I fall into the same hole. I jump out as quickly as I can. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. I see the hole. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down a different street. Chances are, if you're listening to this recording, you're somebody who's sailing a bit too close to burnout, or perhaps you're right in the middle of a storm of symptoms. Please feel free to give me a call so that we can have a chat about your particular set of circumstances, and I'd be delighted to hear from you. You'll find my number on my website.